now. Cool. Let me just double check that we are actually live.
I don't see it on YouTube yet.
Yep, we are live. I'll share the link with you.
Okay, thanks.
You want me to email it to you?
Can
I'll
you
just
put
put
it
it
in
in
the
the
chat
chat.
or not? Yeah.
All right. And for folks who are wondering what we're chatting about here, because we are live, we're doing something a little bit experimental here, not too formal. So the three of us decided to jump on here and do a bit of impromptu live Q&A to properly address all the topics that we discuss here on our platform. So hope you guys appreciate that. So this was not scheduled. That's why you might have been surprised to see us here. But yeah, that's how we roll sometimes. And how are you fine ladies doing today?
I'm great, thanks.
Doing very well, David. Lovely to be here.
Amazing. Amazing. We'll just wait before we jump into it. We'll just wait a few minutes as people join the stream. I'm just checking a few things real quick, just to make sure everything's good technically.
And
Yeah,
I'm
it seems to be
posting it on
working
some of
well.
mine as well.
Yep, just to get the good word out. We already have some people commenting. So if you are joining us on the chat, please share the stream with anyone you know who you feel could get value from joining us. That's how we get the word out. We share links and resources with everyone.
Absolutely.
We do our best to get the word out, but you guys who are joining us can really help with that a lot. Amazing. So as you join the stream, we have 3 people joining and hopefully 4 now. So probably more people are going to roll in. This is live Q&A, which means you can really ask us anything you want. Obviously, we mainly focus on the topics that we focus on, which is natural law, equity jurisprudence, and private structures, which could include trusts, PMAs, ministries, things like that. So those are the main topics that we do discuss. You could really ask anything you want, but we love it when you ask questions related to those topics. So drop some love in the chat. And Kathleen, anything you want to add or share?
I think that as we're all learning, with the last 6 years with the little virus that went around, I think that we've all started to awaken, not all, but a group of us have started to awaken to the reality that we've all been lied to by and blindly trusted structures like government and doctors and attorneys and all of that, and not cutting any one profession down or another because we're all collectively awakening. And with that, there's a lot to process, and it's emotional at times, um, and it's enlightening, um, and I think that all that are starting to learn that it's really courageous, and that is part of natural law. It's the progression of the evolution of consciousness. So, as we're embarking on trust and private structures and learning how to come into our own self-governance, it's um it's like a remembrance in ourselves. It's like we knew this, but we've been dumbed down. And I have a book. I say that because I have a book to my left right here that says The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. So we've been dumbed down. And so now it's like, wait a minute. I remember this. Your cells are remembering. So I think that it's nice when you can find groups like this that you can talk openly about whatever it is that you're going through. And what does it look like to really mean private and to release all that anger? Because with equity and natural law, it's not about fighting the system, and I think that's the most important part. So.
Yes. Yes. And there are many, many layers to that. I've started studying the material of Machiavelli. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with his material. And surprisingly, it aligns very well with natural law and not fighting, even though that may not seem to be, because the mainstream view of Machiavelli is that he was just this ruthless rogue who was a troublemaker. But when you start digging into it a lot deeper, it's actually very powerful stuff and aligns very well with what we're teaching.
Well, in that case, we're all troublemakers that are waking up.
That could well be, very well be. Amy, any thoughts that you'd like to lead with as we're waiting for questions?
I'm just leading today with just the remembrance that everything is, contract. These courts are contract law courts now, and it's kind of a blessing that that's the case. I know in the States it was the 14th Amendment for where they talked about no involuntary servitude. So that means they hold us in contracts now pretty much worldwide. And that's why, I love equity so much, because we are just bringing awareness to any contract we have. And contracts are tricky, and Kathleen's a master of contracts, but a lot of the times there's contracts that we don't know we've signed or agreed to. There's all sorts of ways that our agreement can come, and so how to take care of anything that we've shaken our hands, who we've shaken our hand with in a pledge, and act as surety for, and start to sort of if you like, clean our house or come back into honor in that way. So that's kind of the thought I've been leading with this morning. Hopefully that just sparked a thought within everyone listening. Like, I have a power and I have a liability. I'm not a slave to the system. There's always a remedy, and we've worked out what the remedy is, David, Kathleen, and myself. And now it's just making it a lifestyle and compelling whoever it is to perform.
Exactly. And in order to compel others to perform, we need to do the right thing too. Can't skip over that. So it all starts with you. It all starts with you who's watching this. You
Very
need to
true.
get your inner workings, get your inner house in order so that you can interface properly with the outer world in the way that you would desire. And so if there is chaos in the interface with the outer world around you, I would actually look inside first.
That
Yeah,
is
that's
such a good
the hard
point.
part.
Yeah. And thank God Freedom Studio has programs that can help with that as well, working on strengthening the being, because that's what sort of you sparked a thought, if I may. I wonder when I have discovery calls with people, or I'm in conversation, they're telling me about the issues at hand, and I'm like, easy, this is the remedy, let's go. And sometimes even when you give people the remedy, they can't apply it because the inner work needs work, as you were saying, David, and you were nodding to Kathleen. So Freedom Studio is here to support that as well.
Yep,
That's,
we want to go ahead, Kathleen.
a couple things that were said that it is all related. Everything is a contract. Everything is a contract. From hitting your alarm in the morning, your whole day can be off because your frequency is off and because your commitment to yourself is off. If you say that you're going to wake up at a certain time and you don't honor it, then are you honorable? It's what you're feeding your subconscious mind. And the invisible contracts. I just did a 3-part series on invisible contracts. We've been signing and doing invisible contracts all of our life, from hitting the alarm to the ones with government and powers that be, and in different ways, the things that we do. And in learning that people want freedom, and freedom isn't free. Freedom is looking at your inner self, realizing and choosing to see differently, and repenting, really, on anything that you've done to see differently. And then and realizing that you can't serve two masters. And so when you're bowing down to government, or government's a servant, it's a servant, it's a man with a hat on that's a servant. And so are anyone with a title, be it a doctor, an attorney, a judge, they're all servants. But with that comes the duty of honor, and that's the key to it, is you have to honor yourself. You have to go within and learn to honor yourself before you can outwardly honor others. So when David said that there's chaos, if there's chaos, it's showing within. So the quantum is coming into the physical.
Yep. And freedom isn't free. I know that is a paradox. There really is no such thing as something for nothing. So if you want freedom, which I would imagine if you're here, that's something you also desire, more freedom, perhaps, because it's a continuum. Just like anything great that you want to obtain in life, you will have to sacrifice something. So there will be a price to pay. You'll have to give up something, and you'll have to give something, give and give up. And of course, the give and give up has a lot to do with personal responsibility, because the flip side of freedom is morality, being moral, being someone who's of good character. So if you want the world to give you freedom back, you have to act in a certain way towards the world. So again, there's just no way around this idea that it all starts within you. There's no bypassing that. And I think a lot of people struggle, Amy, as you and Kathleen perhaps suggested, because they haven't really incorporated the inner lessons that would allow the freedom, the additional freedom and opportunities, shall we say, prosperity to start to manifest in their lives. So having said that, there are many questions that people can come up with. I haven't seen any specific questions in the chat. People are just commenting. It's good to see us. And Aaron David Spiegel said, you have to move in honor, be honorable. So that's great. But we don't want to just throw words out without really feeling into the truth of what those words mean. So it's one thing just to say be honorable, but it's another thing to really, really cognize and incorporate and holistically know what that means.
Yeah. And when you said you have to like give up, it's really our cells hold memory, and there's Dr. Amato and other tests that show that water holds memory and our cells are made of water. And then there's more studies that show that mice hold 7 generations of trauma, of information, so that's the trauma and abuse. And if you look at us and we hold 7 generations of trauma and abuse, it's really a beautiful opportunity right now to come in and live in the present and look at what you've done, because as you heal, remedy is to heal, right? And so as you heal, and you let go of, you realize and forgive yourself and others, and you're letting go of the past trauma. You're letting go of how you perceived something in the past, and you're coming into the present. That changes the future. And it's really a beautiful time to be here right now, because we're truly the change.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, I haven't seen any questions yet. Did either of you come with any questions that have been asked recently that you wanted to just address? Maybe that could be one way we dive right in while we're still waiting. I'll just mention one more time for folks who are tuning in. We have about 18 people. I'm really surprised that we have 15 to 18 people zooming in here, connecting with us, and nobody has any questions.
Yeah.
Do you guys not like us or something?
Just, no question is
I
stupid.
mean, what's up? Give us some questions. That's the best way to feed us. Feed us with questions.
Yeah.
So, but we may have we could probably tackle a few that you guys have noted, the people that come up, maybe questions that come up frequently.
In class today, I have a mastermind group for my PMA Power Mastermind. And it's a mastermind. So as we go through contracts and everything, different questions come up. One of the questions was, the beauty of having a ministry or a church is, and two or more come together, it's what is our faith? Because I don't know a man alive that I give the authority to judge my faith. And as some that know me, I stood up successfully to Pfizer by while reporting to the general counsel of the division that I worked for, head of compliance, and using natural law, and just was like, where's your jurisdiction? And when we apply that, it's so your authority is not from another man or woman. Those are servants if they have a title on, and knowing that and coming back to knowing you all rights, immutable, unalienable, God-given, inherent, all rights come from Creator and not from a man. And so I one of the things we were talking about is and I'm going to say it wrong, is there's a case study too on it on the mushrooms that you take for the experience, the what ayahuasca or whatever.
Psilocybin.
Huh?
Psilocybin.
Yeah. And it's two or more. And so we walked through some of the like how if you got challenged, what are your protections in the private and how do you word that and everything. So we were looking at how to word the contracts to make sure that they honor that so that it stays with the private, but also what duty does morally and ethically does the faith-based organization have. So it's just interesting conversation. So anybody that has a question, like let us know.
We have a question. It's kind of like they kind of phrased it like a rhetorical question, but it's still a good question, so I'll just read it. This is from Undisputed Truth 4954. What they're basically saying is they're having a hard time pretending to like and or respect public servants. So their question, which is rhetorical but not, is what good is an untrustworthy trustee? Thoughts on that?
Oh, can I speak to that?
Sure.
This has been a week of in presence of public, whatever you want to call it, defendants, representatives in court and car registration places and things like that. And it was a real test for me because my whole life I've rebelled against that authority without knowing what I know now about why I did. And I'm usually in a very big state of judgment when I'm around anyone that works for the system in that way. And this week I decided I was going to practice, as someone put in the comment, honor, and really questioned what is honor. And I decided to, because it's a fine line between being loving and non-judgmental, judge not or you'll be judged first, and being righteous. So honor's like you're being righteous and you're loving other beings like they are you as well. So I practiced honor this week with the judge and with, even the security at the front door. And when I went into the car registration place and they're all wearing the fake rainbow lanyards, and they're all in this sort of contentiousness of no from the start when I'm trying to assert my documents for moving the car into the private trust. And I had to really drop the dishonor out of myself and judgment and speak to them in a place of honor. So I'd use their name and I would use like what David teaches to the scripts of asking questions and compelling performance in a gentle way, just as we would in the courtroom, without arguing or thinking that they're less than or whatever. And when I did that, I just had such amazing results, not only to them doing going beyond their initial no, and coming into a yes. But also just myself, I walked away going, Amy, you don't have to keep, divide. It's not like them and you, or less than and you're more than. Like, we're here with this knowledge to integrate, and be in the world, but not be, of it. So it's kind of like we're discerning and understanding different frequencies and vibrations and demonic forces, and at the same time loving and lifting and integrating. And that's like that's a every breath kind of process.
100%.
Mm.
I'll just add from my perspective that the way I look at that question, here's how I look at it. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned is everything is based on free will. Everything, absolutely everything that happens in this reality is based on free will. So let that land, let that sink in. So when I realized that, I started to change my behavior. Now, yes, what happens is, Amy, you've pointed this out a lot, and others, it's like we get into all these contracts. We have all these existing agreements and ways of behaving. We even get into contracts with ourselves. We kind of program ourselves or allow ourselves to get into certain routines. So it can seem sometimes like that's not the case. But everything, this reality, natural law is based on free will. It cannot be any other way. And the system of control operates knowing that it operates based on natural law. The system doesn't get a free pass from the operating conditions of reality. So once you start to put these pieces together, now, when we look at the world around us, if it seems very chaotic, I mean, it's an aggregate function. It's the function of all of our individual free will. So that's why sometimes people get very frustrated, like, oh, look at how shitty things are. Look at all the chaos. What can I do about it? Well, you are correct. You can only operate from within your individual, but you can certainly start to make significant changes from within that individual, which then has the cascading effect of affecting those around you. So, so again, going back to the inner work, recognizing that you always have a choice, and then each interaction that you find yourself in, the key there is, how do I make better choices? How do I stay honorable while still defending myself, not agreeing to things that I don't intend to agree to, but not having to either comply or fight, right? How do I find that honorable route? How do I sometimes just ignore things if it's appropriate? Making the best decision in each particular circumstance. And as more and more people start to embody that, the entire collective experience starts to elevate. It improves for everyone. So it is correct, each of us individually can only operate in our sphere, but most people, in my opinion, many people are falling short of even that. And once we see you who's watching this and others start to raise their own consciousness, the collective consciousness truly starts to rise. And speaking of doing your part, if you're watching this stream, please share it with someone that you feel could gain value and benefit from hearing these words, and help us get the word out. We are still a fairly small group, and our hope is to continue to get the word out to more people. And speaking of which, we have 24 people joining us. There aren't any more questions yet. So Kathleen, did you want to weigh in on this one? I'm not sure if you wanted to weigh in on this question. And I can repeat the question if you like.
No, it was about like, how do you, if I remember correctly, it's about like, sometimes it's a struggle. Like you feel like the cop or the judge or the public servant or whoever, you feel like they're against us, and you feel that threat, that false evidence that appears real, a fear. And so what I like to teach is to pause and breathe, because when you can breathe, your internal systems can come in alignment. And if you look at it and choose to see it differently, we're all in this game together, and we're in different stages of it. So you can come from a higher consciousness. You can choose. You have the choices you were talking about. You can choose to be a teacher for them, and you can choose to give them the opportunity to do what is right. And you can do that by asking questions so that they can see differently. And that's the beauty of equity. That's the beauty of the notices that I teach and the equity that you are teaching. And it's the whole beauty of the whole private structure is going into the men and women and helping them to see differently. We have been very programmed by our movies and by our songs and social media to be in dishonor. We know exactly what dishonor is. And so when we can show honor and bring honor to another, I remember when I know the anger, I know it because when someone at Pfizer sent me an email that I had to stick something up my nose when I work from home and I'm perfectly healthy, or put something in my body, it was a fear, it was anger, it was, there was a lot of emotions that went with that. And like, how dare you? Like, who do you think you are telling me what I put in my body? But and then the transformation, this is a great opportunity to take all of that, to honor it in yourselves. This is one of the things that I teach is to take that and acknowledge it and be like, I'm gonna allow every cell in my body to feel this and to honor whatever it is, limiting beliefs, handing power over, the thought that someone has the authority to ask that. And yet knowing that they don't. And then when you can breathe through that and move your body, because when you're under that stress, your body's so tense, and move that, you're starting to release that out of you. And then you can see differently. I always say society puts us, they're really good at putting us in a box, right? And so and you feel like when you're angry, you're fitting in yourself in a box. And then when you can breathe and ask, when you ask, you will receive. You ask to see differently. All of a sudden, oh, I can actually have all these different opportunities to act differently. And then you keep working through it, and then more opportunities appear and deeper into those. And you can come up with the best possible outcome and the best possible response. And then when you're sending that back, when you're sending back your response or your reaction, your energy and motion, you can do it from a heart of compassion as if you're teaching. So I would visualize, and I often say her name, but I won't. I can visualize the woman that sent me. I literally did this because visualization is so important. When you can visualize a world of freedom and where you want to get, and you can visualize if you're in a court matter, seeing a different outcome, even if it doesn't seem like that. And when I would do that, I would look at her and I visualized her. I had a picture, I know what she looked like. And I would be like me teaching her, giving her the opportunity to see differently and to offer remedy because she needs to offer remedy. Everyone that is doing that, it's giving them the opportunity to give remedy because that's we have until the 11th hour to repent. And so it's kind of beautiful when you think of it. And that's the most honorable way to come full circle.
100%. So if you are looking to get people to do what you would want them to do, what you consider the right thing to do, this is the right conversation to be paying attention to. And
Yeah.
speaking of which, we've got
Yeah.
20, how many people on YouTube? We got 24 watching, but only 10 likes. So that means 14 people don't like us. They think we're ugly, or they feel like they're just here to poke at us.
It's good.
We need at least 14 more likes, and let's see if we can get to 100 concurrent viewers on YouTube. So
That
please
reminds
share
me of, oh, sorry, Dave.
No, you go for it, Amy.
I watched, I'm not much for watching mainstream movies, but I watched the Elvis Presley new movie last night and I was crying all through it. Anyway, and his marketer had merchandise for everything, and he had the I love Elvis Presley badges. And then his marketer also created the I hate Elvis Presley, and Elvis and his mum kind of for a moment went, oh, that doesn't feel good. And he's like, no, both sides are just as powerful. If they hate you, great. And if they love you, great. Because it's about the person at home, is growth versus who likes us. So we support you in your hate and your love, in other words.
Exactly. All publicity is good publicity when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
That's okay. We can take a few haters. People haven't really been dropping any I would say, what do they call it? Like nobody's really been trolling us. It would be interesting to get some trolls because then we would have a chance to answer some averment questions, as it were, some questions through contrast. So I'm not even opposed to that.
And don't worry, you guys, no one judges me as much as I judge myself. So I don't think you would. You could better that. So everything's welcome.
Amazing.
Also, just the power of trust that David creates and how that's changed my life operating through a trust. Would love if anyone wanted to ask questions about that because I operate my business now through a trust, my assets now through a trust.
Are you also a trustee, Amy, for anyone else?
I will be, but currently, I am actually not through Freedom Studio privately. Yes, I took that role on and the role of a grantor as well. So I'm in the
you are
trustee
acting
network. Yeah.
That's very significant because that means all three of us here are trustees. So if you want to hear from real world trustees what that looks like from the inside view, if you're looking at the world of trusts, then you've got three trustees here who can answer that question, three independent trustees, also sometimes acting as a trust advisor, trust protector, a grantor as well. So, and even sometimes as a beneficiary, which is also very, very important. So you guys have an audience, you guys have a captive group here, a panel who's happy to answer any of the questions about that.
Yeah, and it is like being a trustee, it's you want to be always in honor of walking that line and questioning yourself and documenting everything. So documenting everything with your meeting minutes and your ledger, keeping that accurate is very important. And just asking questions. It's the one thing that society has done an amazing job is you don't ask questions of your, like we've trusted blindly. We trust news. News is what, 5%? When my dad died over 34 years ago, and my dad taught me that, or told me that only 5% of news is truth. So question everything and know what their motivation is. So when you question media and you know that only 5% is truth, so many are like, oh no, that's true. They believe blindly by choice, free will and choice. They believe blindly what media tells them. They believe blindly what the government tells them. And the government is a public servant. It's a man or woman that is below you, beneath you. It's a servant. You want to treat your servants nice, but still, why would you take orders from a servant? And so it's just looking at that differently. And all of that comes back to trust within ourselves instead of blindly trusting. That's just it. It's looking within and trusting yourself to know what is right and wrong. And then asking the captain obvious or the questions of anyone that you want to trust. And anyone you want to trust, whoever the teacher is, like any of my members know I'm open to like question. A lot of times if I don't know the answer, I'm going to go search it and I'm going to do my best to find out what the answer is. And so it's being open to asking those questions. If we had asked every employer, like, what is your jurisdiction over my biological property? Because only God or creator has that authority, only that. And you're stepping over your jurisdiction. So it's just if we learn how to speak up and not only learn how to speak up, I'm rambling, we have a duty to speak up. Your breath is divine law, it's holy law. You have a duty to speak your truth, even though we've been limiting I always like to say it's the wall of law. Genesis, we have land, dominion over land, air, and water. That's common law, ecclesiastical or divine law, holy law, and then maritime admiralty, UCC law, water. But the inversion is the wall, right? The admiralty, the water, um, maritime law has drowned all the voice, the breath of life, the divine within, and flooded the land of common law. So it's coming back to law. This isn't new. What you're doing, what we're doing, the trust that you create and the ministries that I help create all through the private contracts and stepping up and teaching, it is it's not new. It's not new age. It's biblical, if anything. So I rest.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. We talk a lot about private structures. For reality to work, for us to have any kind of coherence and um, prosperity, what's the word I'm looking for? Peace among ourselves. There needs to be some structure. All we're proposing is, instead of using kind of this structure that nobody seems to like, let's create our own structures. That's some people call it private ordering. I've heard that term used. So the concept of law, I mean, nature is built on laws. You're not going to be able to make the sun not rise in the morning. Objects are going to fall towards the ground, whether you like it or not. So, and there are rules, there are certain laws in effect when we behave certain ways. So let's embrace that. Let's maximize the experience by essentially taking charge of how we structure everything as we go about and create our reality. That's all we're saying. So let's create the proper ordering of things and and embrace natural law. Just create a reflection of the way things work in our own lives. So that's largely what trusts are looking to do, and other private structures and equity, of course. These things are simply coming to say, we know how things work in the actual reality. We're not lying to ourselves about how things work. We do desire to have the maximum outcome, maximum benefit. So here we are aligning ourselves with that and harmonizing with it and creating greater and greater experiences and, dealing with the things that come up.
Absolutely.
We do have some questions, just so you guys know. Go ahead. Some people ask some questions.
Yeah, let's answer the questions. I was just going to talk about probate. Just quickly, the Will Probate Act here in Australia is only 1958. Before that, private trusts were known. You could ask your grandparents, or there's a family trust there somewhere. And whenever, I was looking at holding assets, and I asked them, okay, well, what happens if, say, you've got money in a vault and you put the asset in your private name? So what happens if that person passes away? And they go, well, it'll go to the will. We would have a look at the will, and it would go to probate. And I looked it up, and it's like, well, first of all, you got to clear all public debts in your name, and God knows, only God knows what public debts are incurred that we didn't know. So these private trusts sidestep lawfully and legally your hard-earned inheritance from the family and passing it down generations. And to me, it all comes from understanding, like, I love to know the true definition of words, because the true definition of words is always going to be the law. That's a maxim of law. So we're just coming back to the true definition of word, the spirit of law through these words, and not letting that alter as they change, the language, the Babylonian sort of language away from the original meaning. We're just bringing it back to that, and keeping the roots of truth, no matter how this society manifests.
Awesome. Amazing. Just before I post the next question for us to consider, I'll just briefly mention, I had a revelation recently. Private trusts, all benefits of private trusts can be distilled down to three main benefits. Anybody want to guess what they are? I'll answer that after we answer this next question. But the quiz, the pop quiz is what are the three principal benefits of private trust that all the other benefits people talk about can be grouped into these three? So if you know the answer, you're going to get a prize. We'll figure out what that prize is. Maybe it'll be like a free membership or something. That'd probably be a pretty reasonable, like at least a free, maybe one month free membership with our organization. That would be a $50 to $100 value. If you can describe what are the three principal benefits of private trust that all the benefits people talk about can essentially be distilled down into these three. Looking forward to hearing your guesses. And here is the question. This comes up from a user on YouTube called We Think We Know It All. Interesting handle there. And their question is, courts are becoming digital, in parentheses, AI, in the new system. How will this affect the process? He said your process, but obviously we didn't invent it. So I'm just going to say the process. How will this affect the process? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
I mean, I'll go. I would look at your belief because lie is in the middle. Amy was just talking about the words. And another thing that my dad taught me when I was little is look at words, and lie is in the middle of belief. So every belief that you've ever had is a lie. And until you question it, that's the only time it's no longer a belief. It's either true or false. So if you believe that a servant has control over your rights and authority, then you are choosing to obey that master. But I don't give legal advice, but I worked with some of the best attorneys globally, and I learned a lot from them. And I can tell you that in my experience, superior law is real, and they know it, and they being the politicians, the attorneys, the bar association, the judges, when you start invoking, claiming, and declaring any and all rights and authority, waiving none and delegating none, it gets attention. That is one of the things I say often. One of my members sells a cup on that because it's my quote. And so knowing that your only authority and your only rights come from Creator, knowing that I am a Creator, and coming back to that truth, and then coming from that stance and questioning. I would write notices to the AI. That's one of the things that I teach is how do you speak your truth and question that, and questioning the courts. That's what you do in equity, right? You ask questions. And the court system is, there's so much information out there, and through David and the Freedom Studios, you can find out all kinds of information and having conversations like this. But who are you giving your authority over to? And that comes to looking within. When you truly embody the I am of Creator, and knowing that all rights and authority come from that, and that with that, to truly be an honor, you have a duty to speak up with grace, not with anger. So working through that so that it's not. So AI court systems, how do I do it? So I have a family court matter going on 3 years now, and with a private agreement that was filed in Chancery, and it's in the appeals right now. But so when it went to appellate court, I used to hand deliver everything. It was so I had to go into their system. So I make a disclaimer. I invoke, claim, and declare any and all rights, waiving none, delegating none, ever, by use of your artificial intelligence or your system. I forget what's called the e-file system, is not consent to joinder or submission in any way, shape, or form, and any presumption to the contrary is rescinded and revoked. So that's how I handle it. That's one way you could handle it.
Amazing. You are the authority. You are the authority. When you allow yourself to be triggered, that's when you become a slave. See, you're going to feel whatever you feel. If you're angry, you're going to feel angry. If you're sad, you're going to feel sad. That's not the problem. In fact, that's great. That's part of the experience of being who we are, is we get to feel all these emotions. The problem is when you allow those emotions to control you. That's when you become the slave, right? Equity teaches that as well. Equity is not about turning the other cheek or being a pacifist. Equity is actually very powerful. It just teaches us that we take a step back, we don't immediately react, we assess the situation, and then we respond, right? So that's extremely powerful. Hopefully that hits at least one of the 20-something people that's with us here. How many people we have? 24 watching, and still only 10 likes. You must think I'm really ugly or something. I don't know what's going on here. You guys must not really like me. I'm sure you like the ladies here. You probably just don't like me. So go ahead, guys, if you want to add anything to that. Otherwise, we can go to the next question.
I'd like to speak on the AI thing. Definitely what Kathleen and David said, that the inner knowing of who you are. So no matter how this system materializes and manifests, equity always has a remedy. And a lot of people always come to me. I used to be on that path of, and they'll send me things like, did you hear about Facebook's new, privacy policy? Did you hear about digital ID? Did you hear about smart cities? Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Did you hear about this? And there'll be fear attached. But if we look at, like, what would we have thought 100 years ago if someone said, they're going to have these iPhones and there's going to be this technology, and then what if, or there's going to be this fake virus that's going to come out and everyone's going to have to get vaccinated, or no one can work. And there is a way through connecting with the maxims of equity or scripture or bylaws of ancient traditional wisdoms that you are absolutely fine. In fact, you thrive no matter how much the world and what it manifests into, because you're not of the world, you're just in it. So as long as you have strong connection to true law, which we teach at Freedom Studio, and the meanings of law, and yourself, you will thrive no matter what comes along. AI, small cities, whatever. There's an opportunity, you will thrive through it always. That's the power that God told us that we carry. We are constantly the principal, constantly the beneficiary of every contract.
Excellent, excellent. Hopefully this is hitting well. We got 26 people listening in, so probably this is landing for one of you guys. Are you guys okay to go to the next question?
Yeah.
All right. So this comes from Domini Beatty. Question is, well, they start off with a statement. Equitable reliefs have been abolished in Indiana. Go figure. So what's the proper way to bring it forth? So the gist of it is, since apparently equity no longer exists in Indiana, how do we deal with it? Anyone want to tackle that one?
Equity's not always alive. It's always alive.
Yeah, there's
The
no such
judge
thing as
must
the
see.
abolishment of equity. There's an improper understanding of something, and there's probably a disempowering programming going on in the mind of whoever's thinking that way. Or they may have had a bad experience in the courts in Indiana and misinterpreted what happened as the fact that there is no equity. So there could be a couple of things going on there. Amy, any thoughts on that?
Well, the judge has a duty to trick you 7 ways to Sunday to make you believe that you can't plead equity, or equity doesn't supersede every custom, and equity isn't at the forefront of every contract law court. So that's why we need to work on ourselves and understand the equity and honor, do the course, standing on the rock with what David offers, do consultations with Kathleen and myself, so you truly know the integrity, the integral capacity of equity in every court, in every matter, whether there's no physical courts anymore, still equity will prevail.
Very true. And the beautiful thing about equity is you don't need to use it in the courts. You can use it in everyday life. And when you start mastering that equitable way of dealing with people, you're much less likely for things to end up in the court anyway. I mean, isn't the whole point in life to not go to court? Do you want to go to court? I certainly don't want to go to court. I know that people do sometimes go to court. I'm not putting that down, but if we conduct our affairs privately, we don't need to go into their statutory commercial for-profit courts. It's really that simple.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that.
Sure.
Okay, the entire system is based on equity, so they can't abolish what they created. The Bar Association is a private club, and they operate completely and totally on that. But in order for them to get bonds on your Social Security number or your birth certificate number, when you get a number for a ticket or a court case, they're getting a payment bond, a performance bond, and a bid bond. There's 3 different bonds that they're getting on that, and those are securitized. So the entire system is based on a trust system. So they couldn't really abolish that which they established their ground like on. What they can do is get the illusion of deception, just like the illusion of deception that you are the name. You cannot be a name. It's a piece of paper with a number. You are the living soul that your mom took home. And at the tandem of you being born, which happened first, and then the second coming is when they created the birth certificate, right? And that came with a number, and then that's securitized and everything. So the trick is you think you're the name, you identify as a name when a name is a piece of paper. It's soulless. The entire system is soulless. So you're talking about giving power and authority and rights over to a system that takes your rights and gives you privileges and benefits in exchange for that, because you are a ward of the state if you don't know the I am of creator, if you don't know the honor of honoring creator, of your duty to speak your truth with honor. The whole thing comes down to honor and acting and living and breathing and talking in honor. And our system has not taught us that. But groups like the Freedom Studio and having conversations like that and being a member of groups like this, like David offers different member agreement or communities and stuff. That's where you start to find like mind. But the importance of that is being able to speak the speak. And the more you hear it, it just becomes fluent. It just becomes a new language for you. You know how to avoid certain words. The word trickery that Amy was mentioning earlier, I absolutely love word trickery. I find it fascinating. But
Amazing. And we actually have 22 likes now, so I guess people are warming up to our appearance, and we're kind of turning into the cool cats. So I appreciate that. By the way, trust can only be enforced in equity. So where there's a trust, there has to be equity. There's just no way around it. In fact, equity was established, one of the reasons equity was established as a legal jurisdiction is because common law couldn't address trust structures properly, since the beneficiaries were not co-signers to the contract. So that's worth thinking about.
And shouldn't a good judge always have equity before his eyes?
100%. 100%. Now, somebody took a stab at answering the quiz for a prize, so let me address that. This was my channel 44, said their guess was privacy, control, and protection. And I had to read that twice because, man, you were so close. You were so close. And I want to give you a hint. I want to give you a hint to give you another shot at the prize, unless somebody else got it before you. I want to invite you to refine your second of the 3. And actually bring a little more context. I'm just going to assume that you know that protection means asset protection for number 3, but let's see if you can tweak and bring out a little more context for the second one. But he was so close. That was great. They were so close. Let me see if there are any other questions in the chat. Let's see. Any more questions? just a lot of conversation back and forth about what we talked about. Somebody's asking if they sign up at $100, can they downgrade? Sure, but if you're going to go for the goal, why would you do that? What would be the point? If you think you're going to downgrade, just come in at the lower level and you can always upgrade. See, in life, we want to be upgrading. We don't want to be downgrading. Really. But do whatever you want. I mean, if you want to come in the top tier and then downgrade, of course, we'll help you out. It's no problem. Just trying to see if there's any other questions. I'm not seeing any other questions. What do you guys think? Any thoughts so far?
I'm looking up Indiana.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so give me a minute or two or so on that. But yeah,
Okay.
what's like of the people watching, what are your questions? What's your biggest struggle right now? What's your what do you need help with?
That's a great way to put it. We're here to help. Whatever's going on. There's no taboo topics. Whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're not sure about, it doesn't just have to be externally focused, because if there's something going on in your life, there's probably something that you need to address. In fact, let me say there definitely is something. I'm speaking from firsthand experience. So just hit us with your best questions. We love answering your questions. Love answering your questions.
Okay, I do have something on Indiana, and I was kind of thinking it was this, but I kind of wanted to check it out. So what I think that is happening is a miscommunication or something. So in many of the states, there's only 5 chancery courts in the United States, and one of them being Mississippi. But in Indiana and Illinois and in other, what they've done is they've kind of merged them in so that it's not, so it's the illusion of deception. It doesn't appear to be there. And so there always, as Amy, I think, mentioned earlier, the judges are trained. They're very well programmed and trained to always go statutory and pull in statutory, but that doesn't mean that equity isn't there. So law and equity are administered through the same trial courts. Indiana Trial Rule 1 expressly states that the civil rules govern suits at law in equity or statutory origin. So the general equity powers of the court over the administration of trust. Equity has not been abolished in Indiana. Law and equity have been procedurally merged together, so the appearance isn't there. And that's in many states. I would imagine California, New York, and Illinois. Often
I think
people,
there's only 3 states that have chancery courts. Is that right?
are there 3 now? It was 5. Yeah, it might be 3. I know Mississippi is 1.
Mississippi, Tennessee, and Delaware, I believe.
I thought it used to be Louisiana too.
That's a good point.
What's important to know too is when we go to court, and by all means, do the extensive training before applying this, but we're not there to get the judge's approval or even dismissal. We're there to put it on the record. So that's why we really have to know who we are and know what the history and truth of equity is, so we can just put it on the record. We might say something along the lines of, does the record reflect that whether you judge or the court does accept my plea of equity? I do, in fact, for the record, plea equity. And by all means, don't go to the court and plead equity without doing extensive training. It can get you in more trouble. But again, we're putting it on the record. Our remedy really, if you're going to apply the equity of being the accounting defendant and not arguing facts or jurisdictional venue, is post-judgment anyway. So we're just doing the courteous thing to turn up to court and place on the record what we're notifying them, what we're what we've done and what we will continue to accept and discharge.
Amazing. Well, Amy, your and Kathleen's answers must be landing well because we are up to 27 likes and 25 concurrent viewers on YouTube. So thank you everyone for getting value. We do have some more questions coming up. I'll just repeat the quiz because nobody's gotten it right yet. So you can win a free 1-month membership. You know what? I'm even going to throw in the highest tier. So you're going to get a $100 membership, 1-month membership for free with our organization. We call it the Sovereign Membership. You just have to answer this very simple question. What are the 3 principal benefits of private trust that all the other benefits you could describe can essentially be distilled down into these 3? And I'll give you a hint. 2 of the 3 words is only 1 word. So 2 of these 3 concepts or benefits, you can describe them in 1 word. The other one, the third one is best in 2 words. So giving you guys a lot of hints here. So give me your best guesses. The first one to guess it absolutely correctly down to the word is going to get a free $100 value membership with our organization. So you can jump right in and continue your study. And we do have some more questions. So we had some pretty good questions. Actually, someone was asking for help. Let me see if I can find it. So it's not exactly a question, but it's kind of like asking for a little bit of input. This comes from Bridget Lamson 8020, who is also watching from YouTube. She says, the biggest struggle for me is finding the right people or people who want to fill structural spaces with the triplets. I'm going to guess that she means the role, like trust officers, things like that. I'm not sure what she means by the triplets, meaning she has triplets or 3 roles. So that part I'm not sure. But if you guys want to, if either of you would like to take a stab at that one.
Yeah, I don't know what the triplets means. I was thinking that maybe she had triplets and she needed help with them, and I can't imagine having triplets. Although my sister had twins. If it's finding people that you trust to have as your trustee, co-trustee, protector, advisor, who are the beneficiaries and everything, I mean, that's probably more of an in-depth conversation. And the one of the beautiful things about the Freedom Studios is that it allows you to interview trustees, co-trustees, protectors, and the different roles. So if you don't know somebody, they have gone through training, and so you can find them through that. So that's one of the unique things about the Freedom Studios that I don't know if that's offered in other places. So you're not alone in that. So I think more clarification on that would be helpful.
Absolutely. And by the way, just before we go to Amy's thoughts on that, it looks like my channel 44, who was asking about the membership, literally just enrolled already. So great job. It's great to have you with us. You're now part of the Trustee Network, which is one of the world's most elite private groups where you're going to learn how to operate privately. You're going to get exposed to all this great knowledge, but you're going to be on the inside. You're going to collaborate. You're going to meet with others like us, other like-minded people. You have the potential to either find someone to help you set up your private structures, or you yourself could learn how to become a trustee or trust officer, which is a huge blue ocean opportunity, just huge opportunities there for people, especially people who are looking for, how do I add value? What's like a new career path where I can feel, enthusiastic about what I'm doing? And that's a great path. So however you choose to take advantage of that, thank you so much for jumping in, and I appreciate you having you there. So Amy, any thoughts about that last question before we tackle a few more?
About that last question, I just had a thought though that came through about joining the trustee network, if I may.
Of course.
Well, you are in the elite group in the world through joining the trustee network. I mean, JP Morgan, who was one of the founders of the IRS on Jekyll Island had one of the biggest probates of all time. So he didn't even know how to operate in a private trust, yet was part of the formation of the IRS, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and if you do some research, there's a long list of well-known, famous people, shall we say, celebrities and others who didn't have private structures, and like a third to half of their entire multi-million-dollar estate was just grabbed up by the state. I mean, just imagine that. There's actually a known list of well-known actors and probably business people as well. So just by taking that one action, you're already putting yourself ahead of that. You're already taking that first step. We can only do one thing at a time. So jump on in, start your learning journey. We'll figure out together what's that shortest path to get you to having the private structures, to operating with more honor, to eliminating all the controversy, all the frustration, and just start getting everything in order so you can actually get on with the business of doing what you came here to do. Right?
Yeah.
So you can
And
fulfill your life's purpose.
Absolutely. I was going to add to that, David, because sometimes people think like private trust and I don't know what that is, and I don't know how to run it, and I don't know how many documents and what I have to sign and whatever. And so we could just bring it back to the essence of it. Just declare it right now. Just express it to yourself right now. I'm establishing a private trust from this thought right now, and let that grow, because it could be represented just as easy as that if you had the power and the standing to be able to stand in that. And everything that we do is secondary to that thought of expressing that trust right now.
Yeah, can I add
100%.
it in that? So trust I always see is like your asset protection. So if you have a home you want to trust, you don't want your home with your car trust and stuff like that. There's liability with the car. That is a deadly weapon. And so you want to keep the insurance on that, but the trust can own the home. And I don't buy into fear, but with things that are happening in the world, it is if you have assets like a home, precious metals, other assets, it's a good time right now, as in now, to go ahead and establish a trust for that. And what the difference of, because so many are like, oh, I'll get a trust to run the business. What's beautiful is the tandem of having a trust with a faith-based ministry or organization, however you want to say it. It's not a private member association with a private member agreement. It is not that. It is a ministry or a faith-based whatever for 508 unincorporated. And then the trust can hold all the assets, and then the house that holds the members and whatever you're offering. So it's not the assets other than the contracts of the members or your and this is how you build the communities. The community guidelines can come under the FBO because you have some flexibility of the house and how it operates and functions with its members. So in tandem, they work beautifully together. But if you have assets, I would invite you to look into trust right now. Any of your, if you,
Even
I
if you
think
don't
now
have
is a good time.
assets. Even if you don't have assets, because that establishment to then allow in the abundance of assets is how I set up first. I've set up my trust, had no assets, and then the abundance came through having those strong roots of that functionality.
Yeah, I was just meaning the protection of some things that might be happening in the world to protect it right now.
Absolutely.
If anybody is on the borderline, that could be like a concern, a valid concern.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, so Daniel Aragon F1M, he wrote several messages. The gist of it is he apparently has lost quite a few family members recently, but still
Sorry.
has others. So Not sure if that he went through some very hard events. I mean, I would imagine that that's tough. But he also mentioned, or not really a question, but kind of implied that he needs to learn how to take care of homes and family that are perhaps too young to show that they are loved. I'm not sure if I guess maybe I'm not, that's Daniel, if you could kind of hone in the guidance that you're looking for. I mean, I definitely feel you about the loss of family members, but if you could kind of hone in more specifically how we could, what you're looking for guidance on, we'd be happy to help. Okay. Here's a very specific question.
And
Actually,
he might want to do a consultation with you.
yeah, I mean, that's a great point. If you feel called to do it, meeting with me or any of the three of us could be a great idea. I have historically found that meeting with folks, even for just 1 hour, I've had many people that have met me on consultation contact me, either tell me right on the consultation, or at the very least contact me shortly thereafter and saying, wow, I got so much of a shift just from that 1 hour. So I'm very strategic. I'm a strategist. I'm very strategic. So when we meet together, we're going to get right down to figuring out what is the shortest path to your biggest goal, right? We're going to figure out very quickly where you are right now, where you might be stuck, what you're truly desiring to achieve, and how to get you there in the shortest path that we can discern. Okay. And get you potentially unstuck from what you may have been dealing with. So I'm happy to meet with you in a consultation. Right now, I'm only charging $99 for a consultation. You can book it through the website. I'll share the link here shortly. You can also book with Amy, and you can also book with Kathleen if you'd like to meet with either of them. So you do have a choice. And someone made a comment here before I get to the next question. Trying to find it. It was a very interesting comment. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh, here it is. Amber GA 9513. I know someone who brought equity to court recently, and the magistrate was smiling at them. Any thoughts on that? I know Amy's going to have a lot to say on that one.
Amber's such an amazing student of equity, and she went to court the other day and bought equity perfectly. So Amber's talking in third party. I just disclosed the truth there. I mean in first hand, not third party. Why do you think the judge smiled at Amber when she bought equity? I'll tell you what I think in one respect. I highly recommend you go and sit in a courtroom for as long as possible. I sat in the courtroom for 7 hours on Monday, and the low level of cognition that the judge had, the judge just sat in honor the whole time. It was just so beautiful the way that she spoke to every single defendant coming up. There was such honor, such equitable honor. Yet the cognition of everyone coming up was just so low because, there's a lot of people that have drug addiction. There's a lot of people that are struggling in life, and they're the ones that a lot of the time end up in court. So when someone comes in and equity pricks the conscience, that's the definition in Black's Law Dictionary, they pricks the conscience. And I do believe when the judge smiles, it's because the equity is pricking her or his conscience. They're not used to having that level of honor in the courtroom. They're not used to having that need to protect the Emergency Powers Act, or whatever it's called in your country, and know and honor the equity you're bringing as well. So when we feel like a prick of conscience or something of a different world, something of a different calibration, the natural instinct is to smile because there's a level of light that comes into the room, a level of challenge, a level of research from the defendant. So that's why I think the smile was there. And could it be a sarcastic smile? I've been in a courtroom where I felt that the judge was sarcastic when I was bringing equity, and that's only because I knew that judge was a new judge and didn't know what I was doing, because they're used to equity being brought in the courtroom, but they're not used to us bringing the equity in the courtroom and the way we bring it as well. And we have perfect court script when you do the course or you do private coaching with David or myself for the equity, to teach you what to say. If a judge does not honor the equity you're bringing, they have a right to, or they have to recuse themselves and appoint a judge that does know. So it's the misfortune of the innocent for a judge to be ignorant, and ignorance is a forgetfulness of law, of the true definition. So take that smile whatever way you like. Maybe it pricked her conscience. Maybe there was a level of sarcasm until she had to ask questions to the chief judge. But whatever it is, Amber's just a true example of how far someone can get to when they have private coaching through Freedom Studio or do the equity and honor full course in equity.
Okay, because of my sense of humor, what I heard in there was, you want to be a prick. To prick someone's consciousness. I'm just kidding, but I mean, it's a higher vibration to laugh.
We'll prick the prick out of you with our equity.
Yeah, and I think probably when someone gets really good at bringing equity and feels very confident, they could probably throw in a few jokes even in the courtroom. I wouldn't do that as a beginner necessarily until you get your grounding, but you'll probably get to a point where you could really, go toe to toe with the judge and even inject a bit of humor, and as you start to gain confidence in that, just like anything in life where you get to a point where you're so good at it, it just rolls off your tongue. And it'll probably land correctly when you make the right statements.
Anytime I've had a judge laugh and truly laugh is when I said, Your Honor, would you like me to pull out my version of Black's Law Dictionary for you? He couldn't help himself. He just started chuckling nervously.
Exactly. So just imagine, like, most people can't even imagine standing up to the judge, because there's such an authority, there's such a power gradient for most people. So the beautiful thing about equity is it brings equity. It's right in the word, equal equity. It brings you right on the same level as the judge. You remove that power gradient because now you know what's going on. You know that the judge is sworn to secrecy and they're not going to stop doing that because their life is on the line. So you just know that, and then you play the game in a different way. It's like, I know he or she's not going to be able to reveal the banking emergency. However, they can still discharge the case if I do things correctly. So here we go. And then it just becomes more of a game of confidence. And I think it's not the only time we've heard of a judge winking or smiling. Isn't that correct, Amy?
Yeah. And it could be a great question to bring back to the judge in that moment. Your Honor, I see the four corners of your mouth are lifting. Does the record reflect, are the four corners of your mouth lifting, Judge? Your Honor, is that smile through the acceptance or through ignorance, Your Honor? Sorry, I love to just role play court. That's my part, what I do in my pastime.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, let's go. This is not really a question per se, but maybe we could comment on it. This is from Domini Beatty again, saying it's something related to family law in a court of equity. The judge hasn't heard anything. My wife hasn't been heard, or yet they move forward with a permanent co-guardianship. So I would say you probably want to add a little more context so that we can suggest, but if it's already dealing with family law and family court, my best suggestion for you is book a consult
Hmm.
so that we can talk through it privately, because these are very sensitive matters. And I respect the fact that when family matters get into the court, let me just say one of our principal objectives with the Freedom Studio is to keep all family matters out of the commercial courts because they just don't belong there. But I also understand why a lot of them do end up in the courts. So if you're in that kind of situation, your best bet is to book a consult. Let me just drop that link into the chat for everybody's convenience. And that page will take you to consult with either me, with Amy, or with Kathleen. So whoever you feel is most appropriate. So let me just drop that link here real quick.
And while you're dropping that, I did see a question of, do you have to hire trustees before you start a trust? Did you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I just saw that one next. Give me a second to scroll back up to that. Yeah, so you need at least one trustee to start. Most trusts will give the authority to add more trustees, but at the time the trust is actually established, you're going to want at least that one trustee. So it's a good idea. And the trustee is going to need to read through the trust instrument in order to agree to it. So you kind of can do these things in parallel. You can create the trust, meaning author it, get it ready, find the right individual to be the trustee, at least one, bring them together, and then you launch it. But then after that, of course, there's going to be scope to add more trustees, to potentially launch other trusts. So it's kind of like that. It's not really a chicken and egg, but you kind of need both to start, if that makes sense.
But you offer interviewing trustees, and so if they didn't have somebody, that wouldn't be necessarily a problem.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that we can help if people are looking for good trustees. One of them is we can help you properly vet people that you already know and trust, who maybe haven't been a trustee before, but could be up to the job if with the right training. The other is we're constantly training trustees through our memberships. So we already have on the bench, so to speak, we have a bunch of people, great people in the US, Canada, and elsewhere who can act as a trustee. So we can introduce you to them. In other words, if you become a member, you're going to be able to interact with people in that same network. And what we do is you can also hire us to either set up a whole trust system, which includes finding trustees, or if you already have a trust and you're looking for new trustees, you can hire us just to help you recruit, say, a new trustee. So we give you a bunch of different options. I can teach you through our memberships the right questions to ask when you're vetting people. In fact, we just uploaded a whole new lesson today with some really great questions that you can ask, and also how to evaluate the answers. So not just the questions themselves, but how do you figure out what answers are a green flag versus a red flag? I mean, part of it, of course, is just your natural intuition, but we give you some guidance on what to look for to make it a little more specific. So jumping in to be a member could be a great next step if you are looking to find trustees. Okay, any thoughts on that? I'm going to look for the next question.
No, but that is a unique opportunity for those that are wanting to start a trust, is to join that membership and meet other like-minded and get to know somebody that could be a trustee or co-trustee. And I mean, that's very unique. I don't know where else you can find that except the Freedom Studios.
Yeah, and trusts are definitely, like, if you're not someone, or maybe you are as well, but if you're someone that is like, there's no way I could stand in court. There's no way I could, because with equity, as you've got to, as the accounting defendant, you have to present yourself. So trusts are your only opportunity to have be in a position where someone else can speak and bring the discharge in court for you. So that works well for a lot of people, whether it's a confidence thing, whether it's a time thing, whether it's, you know, need to be in a protected capacity and not have your name on anything, then trust is your only option when you're in the private, to not present yourself.
Yeah, trusts demonstrate competence in managing your private affairs. That's part of it. Equity does, and trust. And again, remember, the trust can't exist without equity. So it's kind of two sides of the coin. So when you're able to operate properly in that proper standing, you're actually demonstrating that you are worthy of sovereignty, because you're managing your affairs privately and you're not looking for government-based benefits. You're not looking for mommy or daddy government to take care of you. So Dominique Beatty, I would highly recommend you book a consultation, just given what you shared on the chat. That's going to be your power move. Amber gave some feedback. She said, Amy, you probably saw that in the chat if you're monitoring it. Just giving you a shout out, Amy. Daniel asks, just not sure how to start making the trust. Daniel, I'll address that. There's a couple of different choices. You may want to go back and watch or rewatch the trust masterclass that we did yesterday. But it really boils down to which path you want to take. If you want to learn how to do it yourself, which is kind of a do-it-yourself route, that is a multi-year endeavor. And the best starting point, if you want to do it that way, is just jump in and become a member if you're not already a member. I apologize, I don't remember offhand if you are or not. If you want to go the faster route, which is usually 3 to 6 months, you can hire us to help you set up and establish your trust system. And when we help you do that, we don't hold back. It's not just like a half measure. We actually help you create a robust trust system with at least 3 trusts and at least 1 trustee. We're going to help you put the right people in place. And we're going to teach you how to own nothing and control everything, which is the secret sauce. We're going to teach you how to still be controlling everything behind the scenes, but not have your name anywhere on those assets. It's the secret sauce. It's the juice. So if that resonates with you, Daniel, I would encourage you to jump in to the membership. Consider hiring us. If you are considering hiring us, but you just want to get some questions answered, you're not ready to just jump right in, a discovery call to discuss that could be a good bet. If you go to the webpage for that service, and then all the way at the bottom, there is an option to book a discovery call specifically about that. So I will share a link in the chat for that one.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm going to add on because one of the things that is unique about David and who he has as partners, like myself and Amy, is that it's not like when you hire an attorney, you're hiring them, you don't know what you're getting, and you can't read it because it's thought with legal ease, which is the undoing of God's law. And then they give it to you, and then like, here you go. And then you don't have any confidence or knowledge to question the contract, to modify the contract or anything like that. What's unique about this is because what David and all of us do is we're not just handing you a document and telling you this is the only way and you can't change it, and we're not going to help you figure out what it means. David and all of us are there about knowledge is power, and my people will perish for lack of knowledge. And that's the beauty of the Freedom Studios, is the fact that the knowledge is there. You're not like alone anymore. You're not on your own. You have other like-minded members, and you have a team that cares about making sure that you, because that's integrity and that's honor, making sure that you comprehend the words, and the words are simplistic and not fraught with legal ease, so that you can comprehend every single sentence. And there's a lot of thought that went into all of the documents that you would be given and used, and you will have the confidence to know what to change and why to change and everything. So that's priceless, really. And I know that I have members that have paid groups anywhere from 3 to 15K, and they were handed documents, and if they had a question, they had to pay additional for that. So I think that what the Freedom Studio brings to the table is absolutely priceless in my opinion. Not just because I'm part of it, but that's one of the reasons that I partnered with David and in a strategic relationship with them, because of what he brings to the table, of what Freedom Studio brings to the table, and who is attracted to that. So anyway, I'm just putting in my 2 cents there.
No one is doing this in the whole world. No one is. How many trusts have I paid for? 6, I think, that are all sitting in the chancery, and I never touched again. $4,000 roughly each AUD. No one is doing this. What people are creating trusts for people, but no one's doing a concierge package of taking it the whole way through, and the trustee network where you're learning about the trust, and you've got the opportunity to choose your trustees, and you've got an opportunity to be a trustee. Like, this is a complete intelligent system for setting you up for success as a lifestyle. So I don't know anyone in the world. No one in the world's doing this. I'm going to go.
Yeah, for me, it's unacceptable that trust establishment is just a document. Like that approach is unacceptable to me. When I keep hearing these stories of people paying, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with paying or compensating people for their work, but when I hear that people are investing large amounts and then all they get is a document back, it's just, to me, that was unacceptable. And that's why we created the trust concierge. The only thing that was going to work from my point of view was an entire process where literally at the end of the process, you have a fully operational and robust trust system that is actually capable of fulfilling its purpose. I didn't want to stand for anything less. So that's why we did it that way.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I had friends that came to me with PMAs and that were getting questioned by authority, and they were like, I don't really know what this means. Can you look at it? Can you help me? And it was like, well, who created it for you? And well, they want to charge me, and they're not really giving me the right answers. So, being a contract specialist of 30 years, I can look at pretty much any contract. I haven't found one that I haven't liked. I found many that I didn't like, that I couldn't help with. But that's why I started this, is because my friends were like, Kathleen, you're so good at this. You're so good at explaining it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, then it's a mastermind. We're going to get together. You're going to understand every single word of the contract. And that's what David brings for the trust. I do it's not just a private member agreement. There's a whole slew of every agreement that you have in the public is also going to have, basically in a different fashion, in the private. You're establishing an entire ecosystem and infrastructure in the private. And so it's beautiful what we're establishing. If you saw Atlas Shrug, you're having a whole entire community. We're building communities now. This is the wave of the future. This is the internet of yesterday. And I remember, I'm going to date myself. Amy, you may have been a little one by when this happened, but I remember sitting in the law library of the company that I worked for, and an attorney came after he had some big meeting, some big powwow, and he was like, we're all going to have this internet. You're going to have computers at your desk, and we're going to be ordering everything, and you're going to do all your shopping from there. And I mean, this is the very beginning. And I was like, there is no way a woman would ever buy shoes on the internet. I don't know why, but that was my concern because I had lots of heels at the time. And sure enough, I'm buying shoes on the internet. But this is that moment. It's the whole, but it's the knowing what you're doing. Knowledge is power. My people will perish for lack of knowledge. And that's what's unique about the Freedom Studios and who David partners with. So I yield.
And you guys caught me with a little food in my mouth here, so that's okay.
It.
But we do have 31 likes on the live, so thank you, everyone.
All right. Amber, are you liking a few times there? Are you triple liking? Is that even possible? Is that you? and Amber went on to joining the trustee network as well, and offering her services there. So it's just a gradual, process. You start off coming on, listening to the Zooms, and then you plant the seeds, and the tree grows. And how it grows, it just can grow into every avenue of your life. I mean, you start to live in that private way in absolutely everything you deal, every interaction, every contract over time starts to grow like that.
My channel 44
Yeah.
asked, does your group do trial performances like mock court?
We were going to do something like that, weren't we, David?
Yeah, if there's enough
We do
demand, we'll
that,
do it.
yeah.
In the advanced courses that we took through our partnership with Standing on the Rock, court role play is something that's done regularly. And people also sometimes spin off and do their groups. Amy and I have been talking that we're definitely willing to do this. There just needs to be enough of you guys in network that are asking for that. So you would need to be part of our private membership. You would obviously need to have been studying this material up to the point where you're getting to the point where you're ready to really begin that practice. And sure, we'd be happy to set that up. Amy and I have already talked about that, but we just haven't gotten enough people asking for it in network yet. So it sounds like we have one voice for that. If we can get a few more, we'll probably get that going soon, right? What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Yep. I've done it with some of my members on different cases, and I give them different things, but the main thing is you don't want to go to court. You want to settle it outside of court.
For
So
sure.
And you can do that.
We think we know it all asked, could you be a trustee and only have the beneficiaries without being a beneficiary yourself? So I'm just reading between the lines. It sounds like they're trying to be their own trustee. You don't want to do that. However, we have a solution. We have solutions for you. We figured this out. And this is not something that was newly invented. It's been around. This is something probably was created many years ago, and we've just kind of reverse engineered it. But essentially, we're going to teach you how to own nothing and control everything without even having to be the trustee. So you could be the beneficiary if you want to, or you could just say, hey, my family members are the beneficiaries. But it gives you the maximum separation, the maximum level of asset protection that you can get, because your name's not going to be anywhere on the title ownership of those legal title to the assets. So that's what we teach. And when people hire us, that's how we help them set it up. Either way. Cool. Great question. Let's see. Someone else asked, does the creator of the trust have to be someone who is not going to be connected at all to you or the trust? I wouldn't say necessarily. I mean, it can be, if you want to keep your family name off of the trust using a grantor, we call them a grantor, who's not associated with your family, that could be a benefit. And there's no problem doing that, because you can always exchange assets into a trust that's already been established. Like, you don't have to put everything in at the time you create the trust. That's another misconception, and probably something that a lot of folks out there that are talking about trusts in the public are not telling you, is that you can exchange assets into an established trust. So you don't have to, you can establish a trust with a silver coin and you're good to go. Maybe a little bit of funds to obviously get started. And then if you could add the assets in later. So yeah, it could be beneficial to use a grantor that's not associated with their family name. It just keeps everything much cleaner. And it looks like we have someone here to help answer some questions. Who's that?
Well, Manaya's going to give some advice from what he's learned studying equity.
Okay, that'd be great.
Say, what do you do with a charge you discharge?
Okay.
Yep, there we go.
What do you do with the charge? Discharge it.
Say it again.
What do you do with charge? You discharge it.
Amazing.
So I don't know if you guys heard that, but if I may, because it's a great little story. He was on the phone to his dad because he listens into all these Zooms and learns equity just from listening. And he was on the phone to his dad, and it was on speaker. And his dad said, now, I know when you were with Tommy that you stole the chocolate from the shop, and I'm not condoning theft, and we've talked about that. And he said, don't worry, Dad. If I get pulled over by the police, I'll just discharge it. So I'm not condoning theft, and he knows that it's not good. But the moral of the story is teaching the children the equity, and then of course we've got to teach them moral commandments, that theft isn't good. But that's what he wanted to share today. So hopefully you're finding that a little bit lighthearted, not not too serious there.
Awesome.
It's nice when the kids are watching and they want to know what right from wrong. And so they learn from us. So it's really building a legacy when you're having the privacy and the building a ministry, building a trust, building the whole ecosystem of your life and your business is building a legacy for your little ones, really.
Absolutely. It goes, I'm gonna go ahead and answer the quiz since nobody got the answer right. I'm sure some people were thinking about it, but something you just said, Kathleen, reminded me of the answer. So the three benefits of private trust systems are asset protection, privacy, and stewardship. There you go. All the benefits of trust systems can be distilled down to asset protection, privacy, and stewardship. Prove me wrong.
Nice.
And the benefit, the overarching benefit, again, I guess you could add a fourth benefit, more freedom. Because again, when you step into using private structures, you demonstrate competence in managing your own affairs, self-governance. So there you go.
Yeah.
Self-governance.
And governance is the key because the entire reason so many of us are kind of angry at the system and we work through that, of course. But initially it's like you realize all of this, you realize the lies that have been told and that we're operating on in the world, not of it. And it's just beautiful to make that transition over. Kind of lost my train of thought because somebody walked behind you and I lost my train of thought.
Sorry about that.
What did you say right
Distractions.
before then? Because it was feeding off of what you just said.
What I said or what Amy
Yeah,
said?
what you said. I was like taking on
the three objectives. Well, that you demonstrate
Oh, yeah,
competence in
freedom.
managing your
Okay, I
own
got it.
affairs. More freedom.
Yeah, so it's like faith requires action. And in order for people, so many people want freedom. I want to be free, so I want to file this. I don't want to have a driver's license. I don't want to have this. I have a driver's license. I'm keeping my driver's license. I am in this world. I am not of it. I am mindfully, consciously aware of the difference between those two, but it is very convenient. And I'm in the world. I'm going to have, in honor, I'm going to have the driver's license and stuff like that. But freedom is faith requires action, and freedom is taking the action. It's speaking up and it's taking the action steps to build your life in the private, really, and your business and your relations in the private. And with that comes the honor and the integrity. And what a beautiful way to have like all marriages. There shouldn't be one marriage that has the state involved, and because the state has no business. In fact, the state has an invested interest, and I won't go off on this big spill, and in divorce. It's the number one moneymaker for the court systems and the bar. Number one. And the second number one moneymaker is bankruptcy and probate, because after you get done spending the average, I think it was the average divorce is 30 each, so 60K.
The only
What
purpose
is
of
communicated? and had God in your biblical relation instead of state, and how much that would shift the world. And all of that's private, and you can do all of that in the private. You can have all of that. That's, you know.
Yeah. The only purpose of a state marriage is divorce.
Yeah. And who knew?
And
I
I've
mean,
heard stories of the attorneys on both sides of a divorce working together to milk as much money out of the deal as they could.
Absolutely.
They probably even made movies about that, but I've heard at least a few real life stories. So something to think about.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's horrific.
It went from, God, the man and the woman, to the state, the man and the woman.
Yeah, someone in the chat said a marriage license is like having a threesome with the state.
Yeah, it's not good.
Menage a trois.
Commercial intercourse.
Uh,
No wonder there's friction. I'm sorry. I have a dry sense of humor.
yeah, I mean, if you have a private marriage, set up a private marriage trust. There's a great idea. Set up a trust when you come together as a couple. Set up a separate trust that essentially encapsulates the assets of the marriage and the interests of any future offspring of that marriage, or if there are already children, potentially they could be the beneficiaries. So there you go. You just handle it all privately, so you don't have to go to the public side.
And that's one of the things that I offer is a private marital agreement before or even after you're married. Because like when I grew up, we had dinner together, something that doesn't happen much anymore, apparently. But we had family meetings and stuff like that. And my mom and dad had like it was very structured in your chores and everything like that. And so having, it's just building that private marital agreement. It's communication and reevaluating that, having your like board meetings that you would have with your trustees or something, but having it with each other and showing each other your honor, like your frustrations, and being able to communicate that. It all comes down to communication, really, because like I have a book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, is all based on breaking up the communication of the family. So when we instill that from the start, then it's all good intentions. And if you have to part, you can get a private divorce agreement. I have I have one from 2009. I did it.
Fortunately, I was able to skip all of that, but I had to also lose out on, I mean, everything's a trade-off,
Yeah.
you give up one thing to get another. So, um, I guess we've been going for almost 2 hours. Let's just do a last call. We actually have 30, how many people watching? 34 apparently on YouTube. Could be a little more because the numbers are always going up and down. I think we have people on other platforms. That's probably why the numbers look different. So we probably have a few people either on Rumble or Facebook. But let's do a last call. If you guys still have some really good relevant questions that you would love for us to tackle, we're happy to stay on a little longer. Otherwise, we'll probably wrap it up, give you guys a chance to kind of let this all marinate a bit. I feel like we've covered some pretty powerful ideas. For those of you where we specifically suggested taking action, I mean, we had one gentleman apparently jump right in, which is awesome. For the rest of you, I would say, yeah, just take the appropriate action, whether it's become a member, whether it's book a consultation, or maybe you just need to go back and watch some of the recent videos that we hosted, especially if you're brand new to our work. But check out the different options. And kind of a last call here for questions. And then I don't see any coming in. Do you guys have oh, actually there is a question. Here we go. I love it. We're finally coming through. Amber asks, for a family where three of us want to run our own business through a trust, can they be in the same trust or separate? I'll give a shot at this one. In trust, we have this idea of separation of concerns. So the first layer of asset protection is we always separate asset holding from management from commercial activity. So that's why whenever we set up a trust system, you would always have a minimum of 3 trusts. Now, the next question is for commercial public-facing activity, if you have multiple businesses, for example, Should you combine them into one business trust or separate? I would say as long as you have asset holding, management, and business in separate silos, having multiple business lines in one business trust is probably not a big deal. What you would probably find yourself doing over time, though, is just to properly manage everything and steward it and keep it even more protected, you'd probably eventually split out different business lines, especially as they start growing. But I think it would be okay for them to be combined as long as, again, you're separating the different concerns. That's the most important part. And I'll see if you ladies have anything to add on that in regards to that question.
Yeah, I mean, having a ministry underneath the trust, and the trust and the I call them FBO, a faith-based ministry or an faith-based association or faith-based unincorporated, and having that manage like the courses or whatever your offerings are, your events, your courses. You can have projects underneath that. You can do R&D underneath that. So there's so many layers and ways to do that. And what that is, it's called layering protection. So it's not a direct access. You have the private agreements established with that, and the FBO can have a relation with an LLC with a private service agreement or with the trust, but it keeps the layering. The more layers, the better. I like layers. And corporate, I can show you graphs and charts, and David knows that I have that. That show all the different ways and the projects and the different offerings and the different ways to structure that. So think a little bit outside the box too.
Amazing. And we got a few more questions here, also trust related. So Planet Leaf asks, could you talk about the difference between a private will or trust versus a public one? I'll probably set up a consultation. A neighbor has offered my father a free trust. But she's a lawyer. Very interesting. Okay, very interesting. Don't do it. Don't do it. Disclaimer, don't do it. Okay, let me just tell you what I think. So first of all, we have to understand the difference between public and private. This is the most important part of this. If you cannot understand the difference between public and private, that's probably where you're going to get stuck in making the best decision. So anything that is in the public is statutory, commercial. It's basically, if you want to think about it, it's like interactions between corporations or legal persons, which are also a type of corporation. And it's basically all based on benefits and privileges. Any rights conferred in the public are just benefits, essentially. Like you can think of it like employee privileges. So there are no true mankind rights in the public, and it's all statutory. Which also means that anything in the public is subject to statute. So whatever is going on in the commercial code is going to apply. And that would be certainly true for trusts, public trusts, or trusts that are registered in the public or recorded in the public. Now, a will is even worse than a trust because will almost always is subject to probate. Like even though someone has expressed their intent to, for example, say that there's an inheritance, it's still going to go through the probate. So you can't even avoid it. With a public trust, at least, with a public trust or a statutory trust, at least there's still a chance that it wouldn't go through probate. So at least it's better in that sense, but it's still public and it's still statutory, which means it's easier to dismantle. When you go to a private trust, you're not doing, it's completely private. You're not requesting any benefit from the public. You're not requesting permission from the state to create your trust. You could still get benefits. I mean, if a trust gets a bank account, obviously that's statutory in nature. So you're kind of interfacing with the public in that way, but the trust itself is not its legitimacy is not based on any statute. So it's all based on private contract. We all have an unlimited right to contract, which also means you don't need to hire a licensed attorney to create a private trust. Okay. You may still want to hire an attorney to deal with the statutory side of things, right? They're pretty good at that. So if you want your attorney to review like what you give to the bank, that's cool. But your private instrument would never be reviewed by an attorney. And so by the same extension, you probably wouldn't hire an attorney at law to create a private trust. So hopefully that explains it. They also mentioned they might book a consultation. So I would say also go check out the masterclass that we just did on yesterday. So that might give you some more clarity on that. But obviously, if you need more clarity and you want to book a consultation or a discovery call, then feel free to do that.
Yeah, and I'd like to add in that a lot of times when an attorney is doing a trust, because I went to an attorney for a trust in 2012. And so when I started learning more about trust and everything, I went and pulled it out. And it's a private revocable trust. So there's a difference between revocable and irrevocable. And also, I am a trustee for several trusts, and you can get a non-statutory bank account. But in interviewing banks, a lot of them are thinking that it is a revocable trust and they want all the documents. And that's not something that you give them with a private irrevocable trust. But that's all covered in the Freedom Studios when you go through them. All of that's covered. So you're not on your own. And that's the beauty of this. So I yield.
Awesome. Here's another question that I think, Amy, I think you're going to like this one. This is from Leah McNeely, 6285. Does your ministry teach how to protect property from government theft, i.e. property taxes?
Martin.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry, I do have my 6-year-old talking in the background. Yeah, I mean, we might have to gonna have to be quiet for a little bit, honey. So real live streaming. Absolutely. I mean, I'm assisting a lady right now, so I've had tremendous success. About 21 discharges out of 21, not one went to court, not one went on my credit report, bringing equity. And I saw someone put in the message saying you can't treat every case the same, but we do in equity because we're looking at it simply from a commercial point of view of a commercial draft being created, an offer, and we treat it the same way. So whether it's land tax, property tax, car discharge, mortgage, whatever it is the same principle of how we discharge the charge, as my son said, or the claim. So we'll do it the same way. But obviously, you know, we treat things equal but not similar. So every situation will be a little bit different and you have to choose your battles. I'm assisting a lady right now with land tax, and once it's accepted in the way we do, it's discharged, but then it might take a year or 6 months or 1 month or 4 years in compelling that discharge to happen. That's why we don't just give anyone a template here at Freedom Studio. You learn the process for at least 3 months before you know, going in and applying the discharge. But absolutely, long story short.
Yep. And I found, you know, I haven't dealt with that particular issue, but I found, for example, my dealings with the IRS, things have gotten a lot easier once I started bringing equity. Like doors just start opening. Like Amy, you told me the other day, we were able to get a foreign EIN without even having to use my social security number. I mean, who would have thought, right? So doors just start opening, and you'll find that like literally everything just starts flowing. It starts flowing. You get into a flow state. So I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that flow state where things are just moving along, you know, things are popping, whatever expression you want to use. So equity really allows your whole life to open up. Again, our whole purpose of the Freedom Studio is to help you be great. And the only way that you can be great is if you just get left alone from those who are trying to hold you back, and you have the proper tools to defend yourself psychologically if people are trying to like suck your energy or take your life force or, you know, tell you what to do, try to control your behavior. Like you take back your power, but you do it in a way that's not like you're trying to tear down everything in your path, you know, be like a destructive machine. It's like the silent power. as it were. Going back to Machiavelli in context to that, because he talks a lot about silent power, the power of silence, the power of being still, power of not immediately reacting. So a lot these principles do come in, and basically you're going to have I mean, it has the potential to open up so much for you, so much potential, and it would be our pleasure to help you with whatever that journey, however that journey looks like. So I think we've been going for just over 2 hours. I think we're going to wrap it up. We had some amazing questions. It seems like this was, as an experiment, this was a complete success. So I have a feeling we're going to do this again. So chances are you guys are going to see us again. We'll figure out the cadence, whether it's going to be a weekly thing or a bi-weekly. We'll figure that out. You guys can give us your input. We had about 37 likes on the live stream. Up to 30 people, I think, joining us. So really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And Amy and Kathleen, do you guys want to give some parting thoughts here?
Yeah, I would just like to say, even though I'm talking about this in the simplicity, I've spent 3 years of going through tremendous lows, tremendous highs, tremendous lows, tremendous highs, working out, taking the knowledge that I was taught and turning it into application and wisdom. So we will all have to go through that test, but I've definitely been through hell and into the light, through having to deal with these creditors back and forth, to be able to sit with you and go, yeah, this is easy, just charge and discharge, just, you know, don't fight, just accept, just know that behind, you know, what I'm saying is a lot of experience, a lot of struggle and adversity to come to such simplicity, as with David definitely running Freedom Studio, and of course Kathleen 30 odd years in this game, if I'm correct. So yeah, going through the adversity for you all, so it's easier for you guys to
We're
come
taking the
through.
punches for you. We're taking the punches.
Shorten that span. I like to add on to that I don't know if Tony Robbins owns this or if he got it from somebody, but it has always helped me. And like Amy mentioning, like the highs and the lows, but then it's like running a marathon. You build up that resistance, you build up that tenacity, you build up that I'm not thinking of the right word, but life happens for you, not to you. And when you can start looking at it, that all of that was helping you to rise up in consciousness, to rise up in courage. Courage is doing something anyway, and not, I have it written, I wrote it down because this is when I have cards everywhere. So courage is doing the right thing when you don't know how it's going to work out. And that's what, like, you know, you have something in you that just wants to speak up or do something and take that action. And when you can look at life happens for you and not to you, it helps get through those hard times. And I think, Amy, kind of what you were alluding to is like we're shortening that curve because we have endured it. So if we can help you to not have to have that low so low, and get to the outcome that you're wanting quicker, that's what we're here for, because we want to share that. So
Amazing. Great words. The only other thing I'll add is please share this live stream and our channel and our content with someone that you care about, who you feel could benefit from hearing these words. If you do nothing else, then that you could literally change someone's life by just exposing them to great information, great knowledge. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I have a feeling you're going to see us again soon based on the success of today's live stream. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you all very soon. Take care, everyone.
thanks.